I'm so excited for this next chapter. But before I get into that, let me back up. Back to March of last year, March of 2024. Because that was the last video I had posted on my Renegade for Justice account, was March of 2024. And to kind of step to a side story, for a lot of reasons, I had been struggling to find my voice. And I had made about 6 or 7 drafts of this video trying to explain why I was struggling to find my voice. And I kept getting into rabbit holes that ultimately got me into places where I couldn't talk about stuff because there are other people that I'm connected to, right? I don't live in a vortex in just this like box right here. And so I'm mindful of other people's privacy. So there are some stories I don't share because they involve other people, and I respect the desire of those people to share or not share and their autonomy to make that choice. So with that being said, I found something, just like a quick thing online to explain why, like where I was at, let's say for the past few years. When someone is oppressed, their voice can become subdued, hesitant, or even silenced, often due to a feeling of powerlessness, feel of repercussion, and internalized messages that their opinions don't matter, leading to a diminished ability to express themselves freely and confidently. This can manifest in a quieter tone, less assertive speech pattern, and a tendency to self-censor their thought and words. Key points about how oppression affects a person's voice. Lowered volume. People experiencing oppression might speak softly or with less projection, as if trying to not draw attention to themselves. Hesitation and stammering. Uncertainty and fear can lead to frequent pauses and stumbling over words while speaking. Self-censorship. Individuals might avoid expressing strong opinions or critical views due to the potential for negative consequences. So, between being the victim of a narcissistic, abusive situation and being a felon, and rightfully so, because I was guilty of my DUI negligent homicide crime. After those crazy horror stories were over and I was ready to set my life straight, so to speak, one where I could find peace and joy and purpose, I struggled to find my voice because I had a lot of scars of censorship and oppression. And I did a lot of work because I take this stuff seriously, and I have learned to love myself enough to know I'm worthy enough to get rid of all the crap that I inherited from those other situations that were not mine, that I did not create. And so in the process of trying to unravel all of this stuff in the past few years, it's been like a slow process, right? You know, first I got out of prison. That was great. And then it took me like 7 applications to get my parole transferred to the state I live in now so that I could be closer to someone who matters most to me. Then after that, I had to get off of parole. So my parole expired, meaning that I had to serve every single day of that 5 years up until the end of my parole. And so incrementally, I found more freedom and more of a voice. But I was still terrified to admit that I was a felon. I had had several negative experiences of disclosing my crime to people, disclosing that I was a felon to people, and them having horrible reactions, and it really hurting me deeply. And so I had to like stumble through all of these lessons to try and figure out, where is my voice? And so let's go back to this March of 2024. So March of 2024, I post that last video, and then for the most part, I go dark on Renegade for Justice the whole summer. And then another thing happens at the beginning of November of 2024. And suddenly my next video is, I wrote it down, November 7th. And I start posting November 7th with regularity because something happened to me significantly in November. Because all of this struggling with my voice that I had been doing in the months and years prior to that, I had been doing very quietly and internally. I had been doing it, a lot of it, in the same way that I had done it when I was in prison, and that was through writing and reflection and thought and reading. And it was largely invisible to the outside world. But then something really disappointing happened. And I realized that the country I was living in just really did not give a fuck about women. And that I had this desire that I had held my whole life to be polite and kind and mind my P's and Q's, so to speak. And it was that patriarchal conditioning that I had been taught to not be offensive, right, as a woman. And so at the beginning of November, when I got that disappointing news, I thought, well, who the fuck am I being nice for? Because if me smiling and being polite to all of these people who have horrific views is not getting me to even have them consider to vote in something that would be greatly to the benefit of women everywhere, not to mention pretty much everyone else would be of benefit except for like a handful of people. Anyway, I digress. I realized after that disappointing news in November that whether I shared my opinion or not, whether I worried about if I was going to get another text message from my abuser or not, critical of me going on TikTok or not, that doesn't matter. It does not matter. And so I had what I love to call the fuck it switch, where I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to start posting. And so I did. And then some time went by. And after that November 7th video, and I'm posting kind of regularly, and I'm talking about prison, and I'm talking about oppression, and I'm talking about forgiveness, right? I'm like kind of trying to find my wheelhouse on TikTok. Like, where's my voice? Where's my audience? Okay, I'm figuring it out. And then this other thing happens, December 4th. And it piques my interest because as someone who's been to prison, I was very curious about how they were managing the situation from an ethical perspective. And so I watched and I watched. And on the 10th, Luigi Mangione was arrested in Pennsylvania. My next video, the 11th of December, is just like a video of me saying, hey, you guys, here's an idea. You want to support that dude? Like, you can write him a letter. And wow, what a whirlwind it has been since then.